Though Kenya is a Christian nation, we faced challenges as advertisers favored neutral stations. But through faith and determination, we adapted.
That in itself is very, very important. I see Family TV as a very, very strong vendor for the Word of God, which is nourishment and life to human beings. And for that matter, just for that, I feel like I have to be part and parcel of that God's agenda.
And I have, over the years, been happily surprised by how God has used family media to convince people about the love of God and the only way through Jesus.
My biggest challenge before that was alcoholism. I was so much addicted to alcohol that it was actually killing me. Nothing seemed to move. And at that moment, through Family TV and through that program on Road Parsley, I accepted Christ without anybody there.
With the support of over 8,000 partners, we have not only stayed on the air, but expanded our reach. Today, Family TV is aired across Kenya, and by satellite, we touch lives across Africa and the world. Music. More interaction. Our radio presence is equally strong, with Family Radio now broadcasting in 6 cities across Kenya and the launch of Radio 316, streaming Christian music worldwide.
Working out for you is God working for you.
And now, every Friday, experience the best of Kenyan worship. Our content reflects the diversity of our audience, with 45% of it being locally produced. Whether it's a moving testimony, an insightful talk show, or daily devotionals, we strive to serve our community with programming that touches lives.
This one, I give all the thanks and glory to God who had showed me Family Media, because through Family Media, I've learned also, I've been inspired by the music they play.
Mary, yeah, wake up. There is a man here, want to build a good house for you.
Our CRR initiative, Building Hope, has been actively collecting funds in partnerships with organizations like Habitat for Humanity to build houses, as well as collaborating with Kenya Food Banking and many others to support those in need.
Hata jana sikukula. Hii naona hii itanisukuma kama siku 3 hivi. Ikiisha sijui itafanya nini.
We have fed over 1,000 vulnerable families, which consist like 600 people, each family.
We're here today as Family Media at the Mukuru Kwa Ruben slums, joining these beautiful young mothers at the Hope for Teenage Mothers home, celebrating a very special day.
What's your name?
And we brought Family TV into jails. The media landscape in Kenya is evolving rapidly, with social media changing the game and advertisements dwindling. Many big stations are struggling, but we see these challenges as opportunities. We recognize the significant change between now and 25 years ago. Back then, the Communication Authority had to persuade investors to venture into the media industry. Today, the challenge lies in being noticed and surviving amidst the overwhelming flood of information. To continue our mission and survive amidst these challenging times, while recognizing the need for growth and adaptation, we must embrace change without losing our identity to secure our future.
A very good morning to you. Welcome to Motivation Monday, where we bring you challenging conversations
and inspiring stories. My name is Elijah Mokaya, your host, and today I am joined with a wonderful, wonderful guest, Mr. John Karugu, who's a trainer, financial expert, and management consultant, helping us to just have a conversation, around, especially at the back of, the finance bill 2025 was just announced, and there are elements around that, but also how we are just to figure these things, in the current economic situation we are in, and looking forward to learning this particular morning, especially, from just his wealth of experience, training and teaching, but also how some of these things he has also applied in his own life. I invite you to join us by commenting, by sending us your feedback, or even your questions to 0316 is our SMS line, 0786 316 316 is our WhatsApp line. For now, let's get right into it as we talk about the topic, empower yourself. Mr. John Karugu, karibu sana.
Asante sana, it's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for taking the time to be with us. I know I have made a very sketchy introduction of yourself. Feel free to reintroduce yourself to us.
Yeah, I think you've done a pretty good job. But my name is John Karugu. I'm a bivocational pastor. What that means is I do pastor, but I'm also in the marketplace. And as you rightly put it, I'm a finance expert, been practicing for quite a while now. My area of specialty is finance, business finance, but again, in the course of practicing, again, you realize it's almost very difficult to distinguish business finance from personal finance because one affects the other either way. So that's how I found myself in this space. I'm also a director at a company called S5 Kenya Limited. Ideally, what we do is management consulting, as you said, audits, accounting, and basically supporting businesses to be able to accomplish their best self.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. One of the things, the whole conversation around the finance bill is a big one because we remember where we were last year, when there was a conversation around the finance bill 2024. Now we're in 2025, and I know, there are nuances, nitty-gritties, and details about that. But what that does, especially to many people, is almost a sense of dread. Because it seems, when we hear that particular finance bill, we are just imagining, I am done, I am doomed. How do you yourself as an individual, when conversations like this come, and maybe the economy looks gloomy, the future doesn't look all good, how do you conceptualize that for yourself, even as we begin off this conversation?
I think it's very easy to be caught up in the emotions of everything that's happening. There's already a lot of talk around. Most of us are not even ready, but already there's a lot of talk around. This government is really bad, and there's a lot of negative emotion flying around, and it's very easy to be caught up in that. But I think trying to be very objective here, I've had a chance to really travel quite a little bit across the world, and the reality is our taxes are pretty low.
Really?
Compared to what probably you'll find, for example, in Europe. Their taxes are pretty high. And I feel like our conversation as a country, we don't really pretty much struggle. And I think I've had this enough times. People say, I actually don't mind paying taxes. As long as the system works for me. Because ideally in some European countries, you'll find like schooling is free from primary, or rather since the kid joins school all the way to university, it's pretty free and it's really good education. So I think that's the same conversations. I feel that's the conversation I think Kenyans are having now, and they're saying, we hear you, we hear the need for money, we know we need to finance ourselves as a nation. We know that money is going to come off my payslip, it's going to come off the VAT that I pay on my bread. But ideally, at the end of the day, I want accountability. I want to see a government that is efficient. I want to see a corruption-free government. I want to see my county working for me. I need to see the roads. I need to see better support provided to the business and to businesses in our country. We need to see better incentives to be able to start up the economy. So I think that's what Kenyans are looking for. I don't think the problem is in as much the taxes than the accountability part of it.
Okay. All right. And now an individual, because sometimes it's easy to get caught up in the mass and in the noise. But then it all boils down to the individual. There are certain decisions you must make, as far as empowering yourself is concerned, so that you're not, for lack of a better phrase, a victim of circumstance and situation. And so how would you advise then that we are empowering ourselves to that end? And how have you, applied some of the things that you will be telling us to your own life as well?
Yeah, and I want to be very careful as I say this, because I know it could easily get a backlash. But I think there is a place for, and this is my own, this is part of what God's really taught me about my life, is there is a place for taking personal responsibility for your life, right? So you can't always cry it's the government, The reality is, for the length of time that God will give us on this world, the government will always want money to do stuff. And trust me, that money is going to come off your payslip. It's going to come off the little that you have, probably. So I think that you have to settle in with that. I don't think at any particular point taxes are ever going to come down. But I think there has to come a point where you have to stop pointing fingers to government, and you have to stop pointing fingers to your background and your parents. Someone made a joke and said, after you hit that, you're the background.
You can no longer say I came from a humble background.
You're not the background, but your children are depending on. So I think it has to come down to personal responsibility. How do I manage the finances that I have? And how do I ensure that I'm progressing at a personal level? And I think for me, coming to that place of saying, wait, I hear the government and what it's trying to do, but there's also my own personal responsibility. If I keep pointing to the government, nothing's going to happen to my own life. But if I take up responsibility and decide that I'm going to make something of myself, that must happen.
I like that. And like you've rightfully said, that's something that can easily receive a backlash. And I think, if I'm hearing you correctly, you're not absolving the government from its responsibility. But you're saying, as individuals, we also have a responsibility.
Yeah, I think it's just the balance to try not to find yourself in this space. You're always pointing to the government. Now, I'm not trying to absolve them of anything. All we are saying is, whereas they have their responsibility, there is your own personal responsibility to your own life, and you must be able to take that seriously.
All right. So how do we begin now, taking that seriously?
Yeah, I think it comes down to, and I'll be able to share a couple of principles I've been able to apply myself. Personal finance has to start from your mindset. It literally, it's a personal finance literacy thing that you're talking about. So growing up, I doubt many of us had conversations around money in our homes. You just saw things getting done. All we knew, there was a bit of poverty around us.
It's true.
But the concept of wealth, the concept of how do you make money, and if many of us are honest, especially millennials, most of us were taken to school so that we'll get good jobs and hopefully do a little better than our parents. But now things are really changing very fast. And so I think it comes down to asking yourself, how do I relate with money? How literate am I about money? We literally study about everything else in school, but nobody really teaches us how to manage the money that you eventually get paid, or the money that you make from your business. And I think it has to start from there, because what learning does, we talk about the concept of unlearning, relearning, and basically allowing yourself to understand this concept about money. How do I relate with money? How do I make it work for me? How do I grow from this point onwards? Because the reality is, money does solve a lot of our problems.
No, it's true. It's true. Even the Bible says money answereth all things.
It answereth all things. So I think it has to start from there, from the place of how literate are you about money, and you have to take personal initiative. Really, there's so much content online now that you can spend time just listening through. I have some amazing people that I follow. Myself, if you'd allow me to recommend, I know Pius Moshiri does an amazing job around that space. Reina Hicks does an amazing job around that space. And there's so much content out there, apart from these two, that you'll ideally help yourself to understand the dynamics of money. How do I make more money? how do I save? How do I invest? Basically, I think all these concepts are out there and you can be able to take initiative.
Actually, interestingly, as family media as well, so one of my colleagues called Sally, from Tuesday to Thursday does what we call family matters. And on Wednesday, she actually does financial clinic.
Amazing.
So that's again another space and an important space, you know, that there is much wealth of knowledge regarding this here.
Yeah, and interesting enough, I will still want to emphasize on the amazing work that Sally is doing because, and I think all these resources are available actually on your YouTube.
Yeah, that's true.
And they can, and listeners can, and our viewers can go back and just be able to listen in. The amazing guests you guys have hosted over time. So I think that's where it starts. The reason why literacy is really important is because it creates a mind shift. Most of us and how we've related with money is money in, money out.
Yes.
Yeah. So we spend literally everything that we get, and most of us, there's always a joke. When immediately we are paid, we eat chicken. Yeah, life is good.
Life is good.
But as life progresses, we eat chicken food.
No, we eat
chicken parts.
Yes.
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 And then I think you finally towards the end you eat like a chicken. So
as you wait for end month.
As we wait for end month. And we're almost counting the next date to our pay. So most of us are really living hand to mouth. And I think it's a place you really want to get yourself out of. Because our scripture would really encourage us. Now I want you to listen to the standard is that a good man ensures that your children's children have an inheritance. Now, if you're living hand to mouth, really, that's really that's already a foreign concept to you, right? So I think the idea here is to have a complete mind shift around your relationship with money and how you deal with money. But I think in that as well, I would say it's the intentionality to actually do that, and the intentionality to actually change habits and ways of living that don't really help you get to that place of financial freedom. So I think therein I would add, it's important for you to have a vision for yourself as a person. So have a vision. So one of the things that my wife and I do is towards the end of December, we always have this, we call it end of year meeting, but it's just an interesting space for us to look back and see how did we do that year, but also what do we really want of ourselves over the next year. So part of what we did last year was to sit down and come up with a financial target.
Wow.
So we're saying, okay, so we've done this much so far, but what's our target in terms of our finances? How much more do we want to generate and make for ourselves this year? X amount of money. How much do we want to have in savings by the end of the year? Right? How much? What do we want our portfolio of investments to look like at the end of the year? Is there a new? But also, one of the things we've done is also we have wanted, because again we are still a bit early on in our years, we are very intentional with real estate investment. So we look at what properties out there, anything that can help us, like at least be able to take up that as a way to store value for our resources. Because real estate is an amazing place to store value, so that as everything else, it's kind of depreciating. Real estate, in a sense, goes up in terms of pricing, and you're likely to gain a better reward maybe in 3, 4, 5 years down the line.
Oh, okay. So, I like that. An end of year, I think I will apply that in my own life. An end of year evaluation.
Because when you think about it, really, what's your vision? If you can't see it, you can't get it.
If you can't see it, you can't get it.
And so unless you start seeing yourself getting to that place of financial freedom, being able to define that. But also, I think an important part of that journey is, because for us, it's also generosity, right? So how much of that, how much of our income are we also planning to give and to be a blessing? What programs do you want to intentionally support? Again, you can't really change the world as a single individual. But as Wangari Maathai always said, you can always be the hummingbird. You can do the little that you can in your own small capacity. And I think we try to be very intentional with that part on generosity as well, so that at the end of the day, money doesn't also get a hold of you and control you, but you really also want to be able to have the right intentions.
Yeah.
As God will tell Abraham, I'm blessing you to become a blessing,
Yes,
right?
yes.
I'm not blessing you to fill your car park with limousines, no? Yeah. So I think it's just the whole idea around what's your vision, and so that now you start putting in place measures to ensure that you're actually working towards your vision of financial freedom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that. So you've talked about, our mindset is important, and the kind of literacy that we are gaining. And then you said, having a vision is important, so that you sort of have a roadmap of where you're going. It's not, happenstance.
Yeah.
Or it just happened, oh, I have this amount in my bank account, I'd planned for, and then, I use it anyhowly. Are there other principles also that are important, even as we formulate, how we can empower ourselves? My aim is, at the end of this conversation, of course, to inspire, our listener, our viewer, to, yes, resource themselves, but also to leave this space feeling, I no longer want to be a victim.
Yeah.
I no longer want to be a victim of economic circumstances. I can begin sort of taking charge of my life.
Yeah.
What other things, will still be important?
Yeah. The reason I started with mindset and vision is ideally that's where the foundation literally is. But now coming to the practicality of it, how do we take charge? I think it comes down to very practical things that we need to do. Yeah? Do you understand where your money goes? Now, I'm an accountant by training. Yeah. If you wake me in the middle of the night and ask me, what's your biggest spend for your organization? I literally can tell you that piece of information. I can tell you this is exactly where that money goes. Why? Because on a daily basis, we spend time accounting for that money, right?
Yes.
We take on receipts, we put those receipts in a system, we look at the reports, we generate reports, right? Now, I'm able to look at that information and make sense of it. Now, God told me a very interesting thing. When I was towards my 4th year at the University of Nairobi, the Lord said something very interesting to me and said, I want you to run your life like a company. Right? Now, I always ask myself, is Safaricom REN was operated like the way I operate my life, how long will it take before Safaricom collapsed? Or some really huge organization, right? So that means I need to put up systems in my own life. I need to set up accountability mechanisms around my own finances, but I also need to be able to track. Now, let's come down to that. You need to be able to track your expenses.
Yeah.
Ultimately, the idea here is to find out what are the big cost centers for my spending, right? And so that if you know that, then you're able to question and ask yourself. Now, in finance, we have a principle called return on investment.
Yeah.
So you need to ask yourself, for every single shilling I spend, what's the return on that? Yeah. For example, if I spent money on my family and we've gone out for a dinner, what's the return?
Yeah.
The return, definitely for me, that would look like a better, more united, more family. We are one. We are drawing towards one. It's quality time I'm spending with family.
Yeah.
So that's okay, right? But if I went randomly eating smochas, no, I need to ask myself, what's the return on investment on this habit that I have?
Yeah.
Right? Because I'm losing a 50 shillings today. I'm losing another 50 shillings tomorrow. If you do that math, if I'm eating a smocha that I don't need to, again, I'm not saying not to satisfy your hunger, but I'm saying, those random things that we just buy on the streets.
Just a craving.
Just a craving. So if you do a calculation of your cravings and how much that costs, you will find out it's a lot over a period of time. Yeah. So the idea here is track all your expenses and be able to make sense of what are the big cost centers that you have. Yeah. Now, apart from that, I think now that brings us to the next conversation about budgeting. And I feel like we've heard about this over and over again. But what budgeting helps you do is to intentionally determine money upfront, what that money is going to do for you. So you don't wait for the money to come and then now you put it on a table. Now ask yourself, no, where will this money go now? What you do is budgeting helps you to really clarify in your mind where if I get this amount of money, this is exactly the spaces it's going to go to.
Yeah.
For example, for us as believers, we believe in tithing. So definitely 10% of your income goes towards tithing. Now, for me, the reason why tithing is really important, it's because it helps me contribute as a percentage of my income towards kingdom issues, right? Towards kingdom expansion, towards helping the gospel push forward. So at least I have a certain amount of money that I'm able to set aside for that. But then I come down to the conversation about the next item on my list. It's always savings.
Oh, after tithe, savings.
You don't save after you've spent. You will never save.
Yeah.
And I think that's where most of us go wrong.
Yeah.
We try to save after everything else has been paid, after rent has been paid, after all these things have been paid. Now, you don't save after. You save upfront. So after tithe, the next most important thing on that income is saving. And ideally, it's recommended you save 20% of your income.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah. Now, if you earn 50,000 shillings, you actually don't earn 50,000 shillings. You only earn that which you pay yourself out of the 50,000. Because when you think about it, that money, part of it will go to the landlord, part of it will go to transport, part of it will... So you're actually earning money for other people.
That's true.
But the money that you save for yourself, that's the money that you're actually paying yourself. Now, good question is, now that you love yourself, how much are you paying yourself? And you pay yourself now through your savings, how much you're putting in store for the future. And this is actually a biblical concept. When you think about it in the book of Genesis, right? Pharaoh gets a dream about these fat cows and these other weakly cows. But then an interesting thing happens. The weakly cows feed on the fat ones. So I think the principle here is understand that in life there will be seasons of luck and seasons of surplus. So in your good season and the season where you're really enjoying a good salary, you're enjoying, your business is doing well, good income, you don't celebrate and eat everything. Remember, there's another 7 years coming. There's a 7 years of drought. There's a season that is going to come. That job may not always be there.
That's true.
Right? That business may collapse. I have gone through that. Last year I went through a very painful experience of losing a business, right? And that taught me huge lessons, right? So it's about understanding there are seasons that will come. Sometimes business will do well. Other times the business will just not do well for various factors, right? So I think it's the concept around when you're making more, save a lot. Save as much as you can. But ideally we are recommending 20% of your income. That should always go towards savings, right? The next item, definitely you'll want to think around investment. Now, the kind of investment I want to talk about here is personal investment. Invest in yourself. So on my budget, we have 10%
for personal investment.
It may seem like little, but it's actually something really significant. What is this 10%? So this 10%, assuming you're earning a salary of 50,000, and we are talking about net, not gross. Because now if you're talking about gross, now remember the government has already taken its share, right? So here we are talking about net, just for ease of math. So 10% of 50,000, that would be 5,000. So this money is money that I'm intentionally taking, and I'm putting that money into a program that will help me develop my skills and upgrade myself. Why is that important? Now, if I remember when, I still remember something that I did when I was very early on in my career. At the time I was being paid very little. No, I can't shout very much about it, but it was very, very little. And I said to myself, I looked around and I realized there were people around me that were being paid that same amount of money 10 years down the line in their career. And I said, that's never going to be me. I really told God, as long as you live, this is never going to be me. And I will do everything that you have taught me to do in your wisdom to make sure this never happens. And for sure, it's not that. That's not the case. That's not the case. And some of the things that I was able to do was intentionally investing in myself. In every year, I ensure that there's a program that I'm doing. Either I'm getting back to school or I'm taking short courses during the year that will help me get some sort of certification, but also upgrading my skill sets. And I've seen that really go very far. Now, I'll give a very interesting thing of what happened when I was working for my previous organization. So I came into the organization as the finance associate, right? That means that's like lower cadre of finance. That's an accounts assistant basically. But in 4 years, I was overseeing 3 nations.
Wow.
Kenya, Rwanda, and Uganda. And at the moment where I am now, I'm able to work with 32 countries.
Ooh.
Right? Now, that kind of progress in terms of growth has come as a result of personally investing in my skills and putting so much pressure. It's not sweet, by the way. It's a lot of pressure. Sometimes it's late nights. I still remember a class I was taking at 2 a.m. to 5 a.m.
What?
Sometimes you wake up and you ask yourself, is this really worth it?
Why am I doing
Why
this?
do I have to really do this? And it's taking advantage of such programs and pushing yourself, growing yourself, taking advantage of opportunities around you. Just invest in yourself. Over time, that pays a lot. Now, I keep saying, I can lose money, but I cannot lose the investment I've made on myself.
I like that. And just pause on that. One can lose money, but one can't lose the investment they've made on themselves. That's a good time for us to take a pause, and then we come and continue this conversation. I hope that you are actually, learning something. You're being empowered today to take charge of your life. Life changes, economies, have highs, have lows. We have Finance Bill 2025, we'll have Finance Bill 2026. But I hope this particular conversation is actually enriching and empowering you. And we'd love to hear from you. 20316 is our SMS line, 0786316316 is our WhatsApp line. Do share with us the lessons that you're learning. But for now, I want us to listen to a story of impact from one of our partners, Kennedy. And then after that, we come and continue this conversation.
My name is Kennedy Ngoge Karaoke. I'm born again. I love the Lord as my personal Savior. I am married to one lady, Caroline. I think for the past 16 years, I have 3 children whom I adore, and I work as a teacher for the Teacher Service Commission.
From those early days knowing about family media, Kennedy has grown in faith and spirit through some of the programs on TV and radio.
I watch Joseph Prince, talks about grace. So when I talk about grace, it's like I learn more of what I can be gracious to be. I don't become judgmental once watching that. Then I watch Joel Austin for hope. If you want to know something about hope, aspiring goodness, Joyce Meyer's teachings about everyday life, everyday decisions, and always reflect so much on on her past and the way her walk was. Jack Van Impe, when he talks about the future, he talks about eschatology, the study of the future. So all these speakers, they have a different niche, and they are all in one platform. If I want to know the Word of God, I know specific about this area, there's a speaker who is there for that.
Giving financially to enable God's work through media has not been easy, but with time, Kennedy has found assurance by trusting in the Lord.
Initially, when I started being a partner, I was working very far from my family, and I was taken. It was very far, and those days we didn't have pay bill like the one we use today. So we would go to the city. I would go to Cooperative Bank. Yeah. Then we line up like for a whole day, almost like 2-3 hours for us to make a deposit. So there is this incident. One day I was going to my place of work, so I had to pass through Cooperative Bank, and it was getting late. So I lined up. There was only one vehicle that was supposed to take me to my workstation, and I was afraid that it's going to leave me. So I had to make a choice. Should I deposit this money, or should I just line up and then I'll just go and God will send me a vehicle? Then it has so happened, I lined up, I deposited. Then when I went to take the vehicle, that vehicle that I was supposed to use got an accident. So some of my colleagues, they fell on top of it. It was a Land Rover. They fell on top, they got accident. So I asked myself, so God told me to go and to participate in His Word, and He's going to secure me. He's going to protect me. That is when I came to love the Word, giving. Because out of that experience I learned, I was able to come late. I missed the vehicle, but I was spared a lot of harm. So I've been a partner. I've been a partner for a long time. That was around 2006.
We acknowledge your support and prayers towards keeping Jesus on the airwaves. But as is clear in the world we live in today, we need to reach even more with the encouraging and life-changing word of our Lord Jesus Christ. To become a partner, SMS the word partner to 20316. That's 20316.
Welcome back, welcome back. Thank you, Mr. Kennedy, for that story of impact. And indeed, as I shared earlier in the earlier show, there's a sense in which here at Family Media, we are actually making a cathedral. And so with the support of all of you, we are able to do this work that God has called us to keep Jesus on the airwaves. And so consider to be one of our partners and join us in keeping Jesus on the airwaves. Well, this is Motivation Monday, and we aim at this particular show to actually bring you challenging conversations and inspiring stories. And today's conversation, is tied to an inspiring story, a man that has lived out the principles that he's sharing with us. As we look at the current situation that we are in, conversations around the finance bill, wondering what will happen to us, what comes next. But what can we do ourselves? How can we take charge of our lives? How can we empower ourselves? That's the conversation, and helping us with this conversation is Mr. John Karugu, who is a trainer, a financial expert, and a management consultant. And so I want us to just get right back to this conversation. Welcome, sir.
Asante sana.
Yeah, I like where, where we post this conversation in terms of that even in our budgeting, we need to have a personal development, a personal investment budget line. And using your own example, that was so mind-blowing. In 4 years, you had risen through the ranks of the organization, and it's because you took time to invest in yourself.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I think I could actually add something on that, just a little bit.
Yes.
Now, part of what really caused me to accelerate, it's apart from just the investment that I did in terms of trainings and all, I think part of that was also, it had a lot to do with relationships. Now, who do you surround yourself with?
Yes.
Now, I'm coming to that in two ways. One, it's in terms of the people that you surround yourself with will really influence how fast you get to your goal. Part of what I did was, and those around me know how aggressive I can get. It's because I really had a vision and I know what I really wanted to do. I said to myself, how do I get there? How has everyone else gotten there, right? So part of it was to surround myself with people who really pushed me towards that. Surrounded myself with experts who'd been in the space for 20, 25 years. These are people who understand the finance space very, very well. They've risen up through the ranks. They're directors of finance. They've done very well for themselves. So I keep asking, how did you get here? What was your journey like? What was the first? What's the quickest path to getting to what I want? And so you'll get a lot of support around that, but also from a technical perspective. So you see the way you add. I keep saying now, and this is especially, I really hope there are university students listening, because I'm a youth pastor and I keep talking to young people, and I laugh my heart out when I hear how much they are really expecting to get paid by the market. I keep saying, no one will pay you because you went to school. Right?
Yeah.
I wouldn't start a business just to pay you simply because you went to school. We really had no contract you're supposed to go to school in the first place, right? So the reason why as an employer, I'll pay you X amount of money, it's because of the value that you're bringing on the table. So even as you, and I think now this will actually help us even in the next conversations as we proceed, because the conversation here is you want, as we're talking about the economic times that we're living in, you also want to see some sort of growth in your income, and part of that, especially for those of us who are employed, will come by getting promotions, will come by getting salary increments, will come by bonuses. How do you set up yourself for such? Right? Ideally, I think it comes down to the place of how much value do you bring on the table, right? How comes one person is able to scale up so fast within a short time, yet another will stick in the same place for years, right? So it comes down to the conversation around how do you position yourself within an organization and provide the kind of value that will make your employers, even without you having to negotiate, tell you, we think you're so valuable, we need you to work for us at a certain capacity. We need you to be able to deliver value for a certain capacity. Now, I said, at the beginning of my career, I wasn't even managing a country. I was literally, if I tell you the work, I did a lot of printing work.
Wow.
That was my first job. I was hired as an account assistant, but I did a lot of printing, a lot of clerical work, right? But then, I still remember even then, I realized my boss was working overtime. And he could sleep at 9. Like he was working past 9 p.m., 10 p.m. I kept asking him, no. And he was a Chinese guy. So I asked him, sir, I am here without work because my work is a lot of clerical work. Sometimes it's there, sometimes it's not. So meaning there are breaks in between that I don't have work. So I kept bothering him and telling him, no, there's no way you can be sleeping at 10 and I don't have work. So what you do, you show me what you do so that I can be helping you to sleep a bit earlier. So that everyone wants to close their work earlier. Now, in the corporate space, we call that managing upwards. So we're used to the concept of managing downwards. Now, that's a concept of managing upwards. You manage your bosses upwards so that in managing upwards, realize these are human beings, right? So what you're doing, you're making their burden lighter. You're making their work easier. And so, in a sense, they are personally feeling the value that you're actually adding. Not just to the organization, but to their own lives. And as a result of that, now, my boss said a very interesting statement. At some point, I wanted to check out of the organization. And he said, John, listen to me. You are not leaving until the day I leave this company. And true to that fact, I only left after he left. So that means I was in fact, I was so valuable that at the time, I resulted to everyone in our department getting a salary increment because they didn't want just to add my own salary. So for it to make sense, they had to increase mine, but also increase everyone else's. So because of my intentionality to manage upwards. So and I think that plays a really huge part when it comes to our financial freedom. And because I've continued with that, God has really helped me scale up very, very fast. So that apart from just managing the little that I have, so it's also for me the conversation about how do I also make a little bit more. Because 20,000 today may be good enough for me as a single person, but if I'm married, that money can be a bit strenuous, right? So the idea is, how do I push myself to grow my 20,000 to 100,000? How do I grow my income levels and the value that I have in market? Now, the interesting thing about personal investment again is, as you invest in yourself, you increase opportunities around you to make more. Right? Now, because of my knowledge in finance, and I got a lot of this knowledge definitely from my previous organization and now my current organization, because now they've given me platforms to now manage, to be able to work with a lot more cultures, more countries and all. I'm able to now come back within our space, right? And say, okay, I think I can support businesses. I'm seeing businesses struggling here and there, and not because of the knowledge I have. Now you realize the knowledge is not just confined to towards my employers, right? This knowledge can also be used to solve other people's problems out here. Now that has resulted to me doing a lot of consultancy work. So apart from just my employment, I'm able now to do consultancy work that gets me a lot of money. Right? So the other day I was just training, and I bet I'm the best trainer in the country. Now, I will say that very confidently. You never doze in my finance classes. You never do that. But I make finance very, very interesting and very easy to understand. And I think because of that ability and that capacity to learn how to train, I learned how to train. I learned how to do things that ideally I should not have learned to do this, because I wasn't getting paid for those things. But because I've learned over time to do these things, pushed myself to grow, invested in myself in these areas, I will train and someone else hears me train and they say, I think my company can benefit from your training. I think my managers can benefit from your non-finance program, finance for non-finance managers program. I think I know of some entrepreneurs somewhere. Would you mind coming to talk to them? They're almost begging you to go and talk to them, and because you've created value, people sense value. People want to pay for value. Right? But the people don't withhold money from value. And it's never an issue about pricing. Now, because I teach pricing a lot for businesses, I keep telling businesses, really, you don't just need to price according to how everyone else is pricing. The idea behind pricing is also value, right? What value are you bringing on board, right? Someone else can be selling this cup at 20 shillings, but I can sell the same cup at 100 shillings, and it will still get a buyer.
It's the value.
It's the value that I'm presenting to these people. So ideally, it's ask yourself, what value am I bringing on the table? Keep increasing your value. Keep growing your value. Get an extra language. Right? Yes. Learn an extra language. I know of a friend who literally just got an opportunity because they knew how to speak French.
Wow.
Recently in our organization, there's an opportunity that they had, and the only reason why I will not qualify for that opportunity is French. Ooh. Guess what I've now done? I've gone back now, and I'm investing my time in French. I'm trying to learn. I'm pushing myself. I'm telling myself, I've given myself this year. By the end of this year, I need to really be speaking. I need to speak really fluent French. So I'm pushing myself. I'm trying to learn as much as I can. Because I've realized there are opportunities that I'm missing out because I don't have this particular skill set with me, right? So so maybe just to transition us to something different, right? I think the other thing that we can do is, and I think we've kind of mentioned a little bit about that, is increase your revenue streams. Now, you can sit somewhere and still complain. Again, it comes down to complaining. I want you to realize our human nature doesn't allow us to point fingers to ourselves. We're always pointing fingers to others. But no, when we were growing up, we were always told, no, as you point fingers to one person, there are 4 of them that are pointing back to you. Now, it's actually a realistic picture of how things work in life, right? So I want you to realize, as long as you keep pointing fingers, for example, at my employer, they're not paying me enough. Now, I shifted from that conversation. Because I've told you a few of the things that I do. Oh no, if I'm providing this much value, you'll also take some time to sit down and think, no, we cannot let go of these people. But again, even if your employer doesn't see that value, trust me, someone somewhere in the market is seeing value. Can I shock you, Pastor Mokaya? You know, there are people who never apply for jobs.
It's true.
They are poached.
It's true.
There are people out there looking and looking and looking to find a certain kind of value. And if they find that value in you, they go for you. But yet we have so many people saying, hakuna kazi, like there are no jobs, the economy is hard. But yet there's someone somewhere earning a few millions, and there are still recruiters begging him to come to their side for more millions. Right? So I think the idea here is increase your value. Push yourself to grow your value. And think about, and this is something that actually an activity that we did, myself and my wife, at the beginning, as I said, towards the end of the year. We did what we call a SWOT analysis. A SWOT analysis checks on your strengths, your weaknesses, your opportunities, and your threats. Right? For example, one of your threats could be AI. Right? AI can be an opportunity and a threat. Because it's a threat in the sense, for example, this work that used to take 3-4 days to get done. Right now with AI, you just need to, in the twinkle of an eye, you have all the information you need. You have your work literally availed to you, right? So the question is, how am I, so this becomes a threat if you're still stuck in the old ways of doing things. And you're not improving yourself to catch up with what's happening in the world, right? But then it becomes an opportunity. For me, it has become such an amazing opportunity, right? For example, as I do consulting, I said I do work with businesses and business people. I'm very good at processes and process optimization. And so part of what then part of our work then will be, how do we help even businesses? Now, how do you integrate AI in your businesses? How do we help, teaching basics of even to enhance efficiency in operations to business people, but also in our own work. How do we incorporate AI in the work that we do to help us do work a little bit faster? What's that looking like for us as an organization, as at SFI? How do we incorporate part of AI? Now, we cannot sit at the sideline and say, see how we don't use those things, right? Now think about accountants. Now there are accountants who are I think the generation just ahead of us. Their accounting was not on systems. Those guys are really good at the paperwork, at the manual accounting work, and they will give you financial statements from very, very complex things, right? But now we have systems.
That's true.
Now, if you're stuck in your old way of doing that, that will probably take you a week, 2 weeks to get done. Then there's a system here that will only generate for me a financial statement like this. Now, you have to keep improving yourself and learn what are the new trends that are there in the market. So we did a SWOT analysis. We saw opportunities. We saw threats. What are the opportunities around us, our skill sets? What are our strengths? So I keep asking my wife, so what do you think my strength is? And she keeps saying, you will become a billionaire because of your mouth. So at some point I stepped back and asked myself, so God has actually blessed me in terms of public speaking. I can actually do it comfortably. I do preach. I do train. So I started looking for opportunities around me, saying, so my wife has told me that I have a very good mouth. What does that translate to? It translates to training. It translates to preaching. It translates to, I started looking for opportunities around that, right? What else am I good at? You're very good at helping people dream and visualize. So that does that mean I can actually become a coach, right? So I need to get a coaching certification for that, so that I'm able to get into the space and become an amazing coach. I know I can become an amazing coach for people. Because I've taken my wife to several coaches, and she's like, nah, manze, those guys are so, they are good, but I don't think they are really as good as you are. Because everything they told me, you've told me that and more, right? So I think the idea is figure out what are your strengths, what are your abilities, what are the things God has naturally equipped you to do. And all of us, imagine God is so generous. He's given us, all of us, something we can do.
And I like that. And it's so unfortunate because I think there's so much to really, glean and take, but time is just running.
Sure.
Because we just have maybe about a minute or thereabout for this to end. In a few seconds, maybe one thought that you will not want us to end this conversation without you mentioning, because I mean there's already a lot that you have presented to us that will be useful, but what is the one thought in a few seconds that you will not want us to end this conversation without you mentioning?
I think I will say fail fast.
Fail fast.
Fail fast. Well, that means I know there are people who probably are listening to us in business. That business is not working. Man, you don't run business on hope. If that thing is not working, fail fast. Learn from it. Adapt. Right?
So fast, F-A-S-T?
F-A-S-T.
Okay.
Fail fast. The idea here is try something. If it doesn't work, move on. Learn the lessons, move on to the next. And this also has to do with even those of us who are employed, right? So the idea here is you may have lost a job. You don't sit and cry for 3 months, right? Mourn for 1 week, get yourself back up, pivot, move into something different. There's so much that you can do out there to earn yourself an income, right? So fail fast, pivot, adapt to whatever challenges and situations that are happening around you, because I feel like if you remain at the same place, you're going to get stuck and you're not going to be able to move on and progress.
Wow.
Thank you.
I think that is a good place to end. Fail fast.
Fail fast.
Pick the lessons quickly.
Pick the lessons quickly.
And move on.
Move on.
Mr. John Karugu, is there an email that if someone wants to reach you, they can do it?
karugujohn95@gmail.com.
All right. Thank you very much. Well, unfortunately, time does run very fast when we're having conversations like this. And so, unfortunately, we have to end it here. But I hope in some sense there are nuggets you've picked that you can use to empower yourself, but also you can pick up this conversation even after this. And so allow us to end it here. But before I go, an invitation that you consider joining us as one of our partners. And so if that is you, please feel free to send an SMS with the word partner to 20316 and somebody will get back to you. Please do not point fingers at others. Not the government, not your employer, not the economic situation, not your background. Let us empower ourselves and take charge of our own lives. May the Lord help you to that end. See you next Monday.